Okay, so hello everyone. Again, welcome to the first webinar for 2017 for Carbon Consol Group. My name is John Paquin and I'm your host today. With me today is Carbon Consol Group expert David Beaudoin.
Hello, John.
Hello, David. David has long-standing expertise in the carbon world and for carbon market compliance to quantification and GHG emission reduction for various types of projects. So this video and the webinar is being recorded. And if you need any information with respect to the webinar at the end, we'll be more than happy to answer you or follow up with a presentation PDF that we could forward to your attention. This webinar is entitled Keys to Cost-Efficient Compliance Strategy and How to Navigate the Cap and Trade Compliance Maze. It will last for about 45 minutes and it will include a 10 to 15 minutes question period at the end. Please ask your question anytime in the chat box and we will answer them at the end of the webinar. But since we're a lot of participants today online, there might not be enough time to answer all the questions. So we will follow up by email to all the unanswered questions to all the participants. Now let's dive into the core of the topic. With the new year now underway, the long-debated cap and trade program has finally come into effect with the direct impact on all industrial sectors in Ontario. While many companies foresee an increase in the cost of producing goods and services, others see this as an opportunity to do things differently and perform better than their competition. So our goal today is to provide you with insights into the dynamics of the carbon market. This webinar will speak to mandatory and voluntary participants, as well as non-participant GHG emitters, which are indirectly impacted. So, hold on a second, I'm having a little, here we go. So your host today, myself, Jean Paquin, Executive VP, and our Senior Project Manager, Mr. David Beaudoin. Our objective, threefold: understand how main market drivers influence the price of carbon allowance. Our second objective of the day is to know the difference or different acquisition channels and why they should be part of your strategy. And finally, we would like to illustrate the benefits of an active portfolio management. Without further ado, I'll throw in David to follow up on the market dynamics. Please, David.
Thank you very much, John. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this webinar today. Well, one of the main topics we'll be addressing today is market dynamic. And we right away want to present you with this graphic that is being drawn with actual data of past carbon prices over the years that occur in the Quebec and California market. You will see we will use this graph a couple of times again during this webinar to illustrate some of the important facts that we want you to remember and to improve the learning experience. So right away, many of you, as many others, when we present this graph, might be surprised to see the gray columns on this graph, which represent the actual final price occurring at the various auctions that occur over time. Many think that the price of carbon allowance is a fixed price, even though some of you might know that it is set to increase over time on a yearly basis. What some of you might not know yet, and some of you do know, is that it actually varies at every single point in time. And this graph intends to illustrate this fact. So we have in the blue columns, which indicates the minimal auction reserve price, and the gray lines, the actual final auction price. What this graph does not illustrate is that in between the auctions, carbon allowances are being traded on the market. Over-the-counter transactions do occur, and what you don't see there is the day-to-day price of the carbon allowances. And you'll see at a further stage during this webinar why it is important to keep monitoring the price of carbon, not only at auction, but also between the semestrial auction that occur. So main elements that that impact the market dynamic, when we say market dynamic, we really need the fluctuation of the carbon price. So that market dynamic responds to the usual supply and demand of carbon allowances. So we have on the one side the supply of carbon allowances, which really is divided in three aspects. The main one, the most important one, is the actual provincial cap. So that's the creation of allowances being performed by the government, and the government issues on the market a certain number of allowances, which is referred to the provincial cap. So that's the main supply of carbon allowance in the market. The other one, or second one, would be the availability of offset credits. We won't explain too much what offset credits are, but those are all some kind of allowance that can be used to comply to your obligations, and that are traded not through auction, but on an over-the-counter basis. And the third aspect that impacts the overall supply of carbon allowances is the potential linkage with other jurisdictions, namely California and Quebec. So far, Ontario is running its system on its own. So the two systems, or the three systems if you want, are not linked yet. So really the only available allowances for Ontario participants so far are what is being provided by the government as the provincial cap, and what might be available as offset credits in the future. The other aspect of the main aspect of the market dynamic is the demand, and really this is what mainly drives the price of carbon over time. The main aspect of the demand is the use for cap and trade compliant purposes. So most of you are obligated or mandatory participants to the cap and trade. You will need carbon allowances to comply to your obligations, and that is referred to, well, essentially you'll be using the allowances to comply, and that is the main driver of the demand. But some other participant might use them for other purposes, such as speculation, or even for retiring them for environmental benefits. That's another aspect of the demand. And the other aspect that might limit the demand for carbon allowances is, and you might have heard about it recently, because mandatory participants might have received information by the government regarding this. It's what is referred to the holding limits, or the purchase limits of carbon allowances. And really this is meant to prevent some type of too big of a control, or too important of a control over the market by some very large participant. So really the price of carbon responds to some market drivers, and I'll let Jean dig into some of those drivers that we want to illustrate.
So hopefully you follow our webinar intensively and are getting the right amount of information. Here on the market dynamic, the main drivers that we've identified in most cases there's three main drivers and some smaller drivers, as you will see. The first driver being the production levels. The production levels drive, of course, the demand for carbon allowances. The more a company produces, the more they're prone to use energy and produce more GHG emissions, of course. So the better the economy runs, the more there's carbon produced. We've seen that the correlation between the actual economy going down and the emissions going down. Part of reduction in emission goes hand in hand with economy level and performance. So production levels is one very important driver. The other driver would be the annual auction reserve price. So that's the minimal price that the auction is being set. The annual minimum is set to raise at 5% per year. and this price only really applies to transactions occurring during the auctions, i.e. any other transaction, for instance, occurring outside the official quarterly auction is not subjected to this price dynamic. So that auction reserve, annual auction reserve prices is set to increase on a yearly basis. And of course, that means the earlier decision or management decision is performed, the more access to a lower emission and offset price the company will be. The final or the third point or driver would be the exchange rate, the US in this case and Canadian exchange rate being a very important driver, and it impacts directly the price that the auction is being set at, because the higher the exchange rate, the higher, of course, the minimum auction price being set in Canadian dollars. So those three are the main market drivers. There are others less important, but still important enough to be notified and to be noticed. One is of course, the price of energy. The other one, the interest rates, and of course, we talked about it, the economic situation, regulations and policy environment, and situation of other legislation along with the climate. So again, price of carbon respond to some of those market drivers, and they have to be taken into account when making any smart decision when it comes to management of your carbon compliance. David?
Yeah. So again, when we look at this graph that we've seen in the introduction, and we see the price of carbon fluctuating over time. In any case, or in all cases, this was driven by one or the other, or actually a combination of the market drivers that you just mentioned, Jean. Well, really, the main drivers during the course of these different auctions was without a doubt the exchange rate, because Quebec and California are is a linked market. The price being traded in Canada is impacted and directly impacted by the exchange rate, and so will be the case in Ontario, even though the two markets are not linked yet, and the Ontario system is not linked with the California or the Quebec market. At least during the auction, the price, from the way the regulation is being written, will be directly impacted by the cap and trade, by the exchange rate. But what we see also is a response to again the economic situation and production level in the province or within the legislation. And the important aspect is to see it does fluctuate over time, and it does significantly fluctuate over time. What also we want you to understand is that, well, from this graph, what we see is the price at auctions. Okay, and auctions occur only 4 times during the course of a year. What we want you to understand is that the overall carbon market is not only in a matter of trading during the auction or acquiring allowances at auctions. It is a market, an open market that is running 365 days a year. And there are other means of acquiring GHG allowances than the auctions. First of all, some of you might have received free allowances from the government. So you get some or sometimes even most of your emissions being covered through allowances that you've acquired for free. Second one, and it is a very important one, is the mechanism of auction. So, a significant part of the allowances, of the overall supply of allowances that is being put onto the market will be sold during the auctions. But there are also the GHG offsets being traded outside the regular auction that are occurring. There is also the direct government sale that is likely to occur at least once a year, and through which allowances will be sold directly from the government, but at what we expect to be a much higher price than it is during the auction or over-the-counter transaction. There are also some trading with other participants. So amongst yourself, among you participants to the cap and trade, you can trade your allowances as a seller or as a buyer at any price that you want or that you're able to negotiate. And finally, there are also some tradings occurring over an exchange platform. We see this a lot in the US, in California, carbon allowances being traded at spot price on exchange. And what we don't see here are some derivatives instrument being traded, such as for hedging purposes, futures, forward contracts, options on carbon allowances, etc. So really, there are various ways of acquiring allowances, and to be able to put in place an effective strategy to lower the overall price of carbon that you're going to be experimenting and to minimize the risk for your organization, it is not only good to know that these channels exist, but also to see how they could be introduced into your strategy to again attempt to reduce the overall cost of complying to the cap and trade. And this is precisely what we want to illustrate with this table that we've set here. And we have here two columns. One represents company A, the other one represents company B. And these are, well, they're not actual number, but they're inspired by actual cases that occur from two companies that we've been involved in Quebec over the years, and that has and both of them had two very different strategies to comply to the cap and trade. And what we want to illustrate here is what, or actually how using the different acquisition channels can make you save money. So we have on one side company A, and on the other side company B, and both need 60,000 tons or GHG allowances per year. I want to emphasize here, though, that really it's good practice not to see the need of allowances on a yearly basis, but at least through the overall compliance period. We won't dig into too much detail here, but really here is mainly to illustrate that the company really had very similar needs in terms of allowances. So, well, in the first case, company A used only the auctions to acquire to acquire their GHG allowances, while on the other case, company B, yes, they did participate at the 4 auctions during the course of a year. That's actually during 2015, but they also went, and that's what is highlighted in blue. They also went outside the auctions, and they went over the counter for a trade before Q1 to purchase 15,000 tons of allowances at a price of $14. So now I want to go back on this graph just to illustrate where they are standing or where they performed that transaction. So if you see the first columns represent the auction occurring at the final quarter of 2014, and the second column represent the first auction of 2015. So we do see a significant rise in the price of carbon during between those two auctions. This really was driven by the exchange rate at the time, or the value of the US dollar going up at the time. So for a Canadian organization, well, they were about to be significantly impacted by this dynamic. And what Company B did when they saw the exchange rate going up is they decided not to wait for the next auction, being 2015 Q1, and to go on the market a few weeks, or actually a few months before that auction, to reduce the impact of the rising US dollar value of the US dollar. So what they were able to do is to purchase allowances at a price of $14, which again was a bit higher than the previous auction in 2014, but significantly lower than the first auction in 2015. So that's one very clear example of how they can they can reduce the average cost of complying to the cap and trade. The other trade that they perform to be able to see or experiment a lower price is that they managed to find an offset provider, carbon offset provider. They went on the market, they did research, and they got into contact with a project proponent that had offsets to sell, and offsets are likely to be traded at a lower price than regular GHG allowances, or at least lower than what the price is during the auction. So they managed to purchase 3,000 tons of GHG offsets at a price of $14.05. So really, these are two very simple examples of going out on the market outside the regular auction, and how this can impact the overall price of complying to the cap and trade. And in that case, company with very similar needs in terms of GHG allowances managed to get savings of above $60,000 and have an average price of allowance of slightly below $15, while company A, like most market participants, experimented an average price of slightly above $16. So really, cost-cutting opportunities do occur from active carbon portfolio management, and this is what we wanted to illustrate here. We will conclude on that by summarizing some of the keys to what we call an effective compliance strategy. And we keep repeating this message to our clients, to people that that are impacted by the cap and trade. And some are very important messages that we want you to understand. If you want to stand out and you want to perform better than your competitors on this market, you really need to look at all possible options to comply, not only the auction. Most players will stick to the auction. That way, you might comply to the regulation, but you will experiment at a higher average price. Another thing is get in touch with market participants. So share your experiences, see if there are possible transactions as a buyer or a seller, and you cannot do that if you stick on your side and you don't reach out to other market participants. Try also to network with offset credits proponents. Again, offset credits will be traded at a slightly lower price than allowances. So if you want to reduce your cost, that's an important part of the strategy. Do monitor all the market signals. We've presented some of the main market drivers. If you want to be able to respond to some of them, well, you first need to see how those market drivers fluctuate over time and be able to act in a timely manner and go out on the market and not only wait till the next auction. And finally, but not the least, the very most important aspect of an effective strategy is to plan ahead. Know what you will need in terms of how many carbon allowances, know how many you will get for free for the government, and look at the market trends. And by planning ahead and keep monitoring the market signals, this is how you will be able to find opportunities to reduce your cost and experience a lower average price of carbon. So again, opportunities do arise from smart planning and strategy, and this is the main message that we want you to understand from this presentation.
Well, thank you very much, David. I really appreciate your information provided here today, and hopefully you all do and did. I think the main driver here, the main message here is plan ahead, plan in between auction, have a carbon management strategy be ready to respond go outside the regulatory market and find the best opportunity for your information or for your requirements in terms of carbon compliance. And it goes without saying that trading outside the actual auction platform is, and we've seen that in a few occasions in the past, quite a good opportunity for your business to attain some significant savings on the long run. And it's a long game, right? It's not only a monthly or yearly game. It's a long-term game, compliance over a few years, and as long as the program will be around, and it will be around for quite a long time, you will have those obligations. And then we've seen it through the presentation. There are of course increase that are planned ahead. So there's a 5% actual increase over the actual minimum cost or floor price on a yearly basis. So the more you wait to actually plan your management, the more you're possibly and potentially looking at higher costs to comply. So without further ado, we have some questions, quite a few actually, and if you want, I'll jump right to it. The first question is, do I need to deal with a broker for over-the-counter trading? So David, do you want to answer that?
Yeah, let me just answer this, Jean. Really, the answer is no. You don't need to go through a broker for over-the-counter trading. You do need, though, to be able to find another participant that is willing to enter into a transaction. And really, the only requirements are in terms of legal papers that must be filled to complete the transaction. And sometimes it's going to be a significant amount of money. So yeah, you want to have professional eyes to look at those. Some lawyers are specialized in this. And yeah, you can go by yourself, find your participant, and fill the papers and perform the transaction.
Very good. Another question comes here. Can I transfer the cost of cap and trade to my customers?
That's a very personal question. The truth is, many participants do transfer the cost of cap and trade to their customers. I would say probably even most of them do transfer them. But it's a business decision. It depends of what also your competitors do as a common practice, and that's actually it illustrates why you want to establish an effective strategy for cap and trade, and see if you can perform better than your competitors. And if you do perform better and you have a lower price of complying to your obligation than your competitors do, well, you're likely to be seen as more professional, and that becomes actually a business opportunity for you. So yes, you can transfer the cost to cap and trade. It really depends on your will to do so.
Yeah, and I guess also if you're efficient at reducing your cost internally, you can manage your business essentially more efficiently, and perhaps not having to transfer all those costs to your clients, because then competitiveness comes into play. And you're, of course, if the competition does not transfer these costs and you do, you might wind up with having a less attraction on the market, and competitiveness might be affected. The other question that we have is, hold on a second, we have it live on the chat here, so I'll read it out. How do we know the offset cost and who is selling, buying in aftermarket? So that's the first part of the question. You want to answer that, David?
Yes, well, I try to answer it. The truth is there is no official mechanism that provide that kind of information. That's why, as one of the main message, we emphasize the importance of networking with other participants and see who is able to provide carbon allowances or offset credits. So there's no, well, there are some platforms that might be established on a voluntary basis to let participants provide this kind of information. But so far, it's not a matter of Googling who's interested in entering into an aftermarket transaction. It's really a matter of talking around and networking with other participants to get access to that information.
The same listener and participant is asking a second question here. Is there offsets generated from energy efficiency projects that reduce the gas consumption with being verified?
Well, I'm not sure if I understand well the question, but I'll take the first part of the sentence or the question. Is there offset generated from energy efficiency projects? If we're speaking of what's occurring in Ontario, at this moment, there is no project that is being generated or that is generating offsets yet. The intent is to have some what we call protocols to be approved for some kind of project to generate offsets. But specifically in terms of energy efficiency, neither in Ontario or in the rest of the WCI market, there will be offset project being implemented in terms of energy efficiency. Those are types of projects that are outside what is being aimed by the governments to allow generation of offsets. So the answer to your question would be no. Offset generation from energy efficient project won't be possible.
Very good, David. Another maybe last question before we wrap up. The question comes on the other chat line. It says, can I use my Quebec allowances for Ontario obligations? Very good question, David.
Well, again, as we've mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, at this point, the Ontario platform, the Ontario system, cap and trade system, is 100% autonomous. It is not linked yet with California or Quebec. So at this point in time, the answer is no. You cannot use your Quebec allowances for your Ontario obligations. Again, though, the first compliance period will end in Ontario in 2020. It is likely that the markets will be linked at that point in time. So if they are linked, yes, you will be able to use your Quebec allowances for that. But for the moment, again, don't take this for granted. And as a safety measure, you should not consider this to happen and plan your strategy only regarding the Ontario allowances being issued on the market.
Okay, we have a last question, very last question here that we'll take because we wanted to wrap by 35 so you guys can finish having lunch. The question is, can we assess GHG reductions for energy savings?
Can we assess GHG reductions for energy savings? Well, of course, you can assess the reductions. Well, this is actually something that we do a lot with various participants or with even with companies that are indirectly impacted by the cap and trade, is to try to determine what will be the savings related to carbon or to cap and trade, related to related to the cost of carbon that is linked to the energy cost. So what we often see, for example, is a project that aims at reducing energy consumption in either electricity or natural gas or whatever kind of energy that we're talking about. And we have an energy efficiency project and want to understand, okay, well, of course we can assess the the savings due to the lower consumption of energy, but we can also assess the cost, the cost reduction that is linked to carbon with that, and kind of link it and package it to build a business case that value at the same time the energy savings and the carbon savings.
Okay, that's all for us today, folks. Thank you very much for having attended the webinar, the first webinar this year. There'll be quite a lot more to come in the following months and weeks, I guess. We'll send you, again, we'll keep you on our recipient list, and we'll send you an invitation as we go along. Since this is a very dynamic subject, we'll be moving along with our clients and with the regulation and with the common market knowledge. If you need any further assistance, you can connect with us via our Twitter, via our web, or directly by email. We'll be sending also PDF of the presentation. We'll be making them available on our website, so you'll be able to download them. If for the other question, because there was at least another 2 or 3 questions left, we'll try to answer them directly and send them to your attention. So once again, thank you very much. We wish you a wonderful week, and hopefully we can keep connecting with you in the future. And we'll be more than glad to bring you this information. Thank you, and have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.